Tonight on CFTK-TV, unregulated drug deaths remain high in Terrace. A Canadian survived 77 days as a hostage in Afghanistan, and Trump makes moves inside and outside of the United States.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damien Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. We begin tonight's cast in a report from the Coroner's Service, and although unregulated drug deaths are down 13% overall in BC, up here in the north, some numbers have continued to rise. And here's Jaylene Matthews of CFTK-TV, who will take a deeper look into the matter.
Terrace had the third highest rate of unregulated drug deaths in the province on the latest report from the BC Coroner's Service. 25 people in Terrace died from unregulated drugs in 2024, making the rate of death 109 per 100,000. In comparison, the rate in Kitimat was at 90 per 100,000 in 2023 and dropped significantly to 48 per 100,000 in 2024. Although the climbing numbers in Terrace don't match up with the overall decline in the rest of the province, the new CN Hospital's opening might provide some hope for the future. While that new hospital and Seven Sisters building does not include a treatment center, it's worth noting that with the expansion, 10 additional beds were added to the acute psychiatric inpatient unit, and 5 additional beds were opened up in the Seven Sisters building for those with ongoing mental health issues. The CN Hospital also has 2 inpatient treatment beds for people withdrawing from alcohol, and provides services to people who are experiencing withdrawal or who have overdosed. Those seeking further treatment or detox are directed to those. However, wait times and proximity of those services has been notoriously problematic. MLA for Skeena and critic for mental health and addictions Claire Rattay reacted to the coroner's report online. She said province-wide recovery programs, treatment facilities, and a crackdown on deadly drugs is needed now. For CFTK TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
And moving on to provincial news, where it was announced earlier today that they are set to open 6 new Indigenous Justice Centres to ensure that the total number of centres in the province increases to a total of 15. One of the new centres is also set to be shared between the communities of Burns Lake and Hazelton, joining the previously existing centre in Prince Rupert as the main locations that will serve in northern BC. Some of the other new locations will include Fort St. John, Kamloops, and Williams Lake. Now on to the talk of the country, where we'll have a local angle as well, coming up right here from MP Taylor Bachrach, who chimes in on the ongoing trade dispute between Canada and the United States. And though we in the Northwest are hundreds of kilometers away from the border, he says unity is very much alive among Canadians.
Starting this Tuesday, a 30-day delay has been put into place for tariffs on American products at the Canada and U.S. border. However, Canadian politicians are still on alarm, saying that they'll take the 30-day breathing period, but reiterate that there's a lot of work ahead.
The incoming president in Washington, that relationship has really been turned on its head, and we now have a situation that's more unpredictable and unlike anything that we've seen for a long, long time. And so the threat of 25% tariffs, that if that came true, that would be devastating for our economy. It would cost thousands and thousands of jobs and would put us in a really bad situation.
And for Bachrach, his sense is that Trump is saying America first, but that there's more undiscovered layers to President Trump's negotiations.
I'm not entirely sure that this is about tariffs in the first place. I think this is the way that this particular president negotiates, through this sort of irrational, unpredictable, shock and awe sort of threatening of other countries to try to gain some sort of negotiating advantage.
According to Bachrach, this reality that Canadians face right now is not something to be unexpected when it comes to the president's ways of negotiating. And back in his first term in 2016, he placed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum products.
So this is the kind of thing that he's known for, and he signaled it in his inauguration speech. He's also made some incredibly irrational and scary proclamations about our sovereignty and the fact that he sees Canada being absorbed into the United States.
Now, for the $1.3 billion border plan designed back in December in order to strengthen the border overall, it was announced yesterday that there will be an appointment of a, quote, fentanyl czar who will engage with U.S. counterparts. There will be a Canada and U.S. joint strike force to combat crime, and there will be eyes on the border by having nearly 10,000 frontline personnel on the clock running 24/7. Additionally, the Prime Minister signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime that will be supported by Canada's investment of $200 million.
At the same time, we support providing border guards with the tools that they need to protect our border. We're very concerned about the flow of illegal guns from the United States into Canada and the impact that's having on crime in this country. And so investing in those people, investing in those resources is something that should be done for sure.
From CFTK-TV in Terrace, I'm Damian Smith.
And as this trade war topic continues on for the foreseeable future, businesses around Canada are seeing more citizens than ever checking in on the labels on the items that they purchase. And Alana Pickerel from CTV News has more.
Inside Sterling Farm Market, 90% of the products are from Atlantic Canada, but that hasn't stopped customers from checking labels.
People are asking questions like, where does this come from? And that is a really good thing to start. It's like, is it grown here? Well, yeah, and that's really important. So we've had more conversations about where things come from.
Many are changing their shopping habits, making sure their support stays in Canada.
I check everything to see if it comes from the States, and if it comes from the States, it's not coming home with me.
I'm certainly looking at reading labels a lot more closely and trying to buy as many Canadian products as I can.
Even businesses are making sure that consumers know Canadian-made products are available.
Everyone will comment on the fact that they'll see tags that are made in Canada, and they do appreciate that. So it's certainly in their forefront.
However, Canada's support spreads much farther than just buying products. From online to in-person, Canadians are finding unity as they stand proud to be Canadian.
I think it's our only salvation. Power in numbers, yes.
Digital anthropologist Giles Crouch says online, Canadians have picked the goose to represent Canadian pride.
I have never seen memes like this or a sense of pride in Canada expressed so fast across all the social media channels. One of the videos that I saw shared a lot, an image meme was a Canadian goose chasing away an eagle. Sort of example of we're nice until we're not. And I think that's expressing a lot of where Canadians are today.
St. Thomas University sociologist Christy Allen isn't surprised by how quickly Canadians banded together.
When nationalisms feel under threat by an external force, that people really come together. That a sense of national identity and pride in the nation and connection to people that we don't know, we will never meet, really increase it. We're really proud to be Canadian.
Experts expect this sense of unity and public display of Canadian pride will last quite a while. Alana Pickerel, CTV News.
And a quick word from Houston, who stated today that the air quality advisory that has been put into place for the town by the Ministry of Environment and Parks, as well as the Northern Health Authority, was finally ended earlier today. Anyone who is hoping to keep a lookout for these kind of advisories in their local area in the future can do so by going to the Government of BC's website. Coming up next, Palestinians in Canada are not fond of Trump's placement in Gaza. Welcome back to CFTK-TV. Well, Palestinians in Canada are now giving us a reaction on how they feel on Donald Trump's moves in Gaza, which is yet another area that the president looks to take a hold of. And here is Heather Wright of CTV News with more.
Donald Trump's comments have been denounced, rejected, dismissed, but it doesn't make them any less frightening for Palestinians.
Listening to President Trump's words was deeply painful, shocking, disappointing.
Bashar al-Shawa is from Gaza and says he has lost dozens of family members in the past 16 months of fighting.
And rather than seeing a path to justice, we now hear Mr. President Trump openly discussing plans that would further displace my people from their land.
Many Palestinians say Trump's comments conjure memories of 1948, when hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled or fled their homes during the war with Israel. Ibrahim Mana was born in Gaza and has loved ones still living there.
My family member says, they would never leave Gaza. Never, even if it means their life.
Today, Global Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said Canada's long-standing position on Gaza has not changed, adding we support Palestinians' right to self-determination, including from being forcibly displaced from Gaza. Similar statements have been issued by other G7 countries. Experts say leaders are trying to condemn Trump's comments while treading lightly.
I fear that their willingness to push back on some of these more inane foreign policy pronouncements by the Trump administration will fall way down on the agenda for Canada or the European Union or for other countries.
Taking over Gaza is just the latest expansionist comment made by President Trump after saying similar things about Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. Now, whether this is a well-thought-out strategy or a negotiating tactic remains to be seen. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And now we turn our attention to this week's local weather forecast and for the week ahead. For tonight's forecast on the north coast, expect a cloudy evening overall with a 30% chance of flurries overnight. Wind should be coming from the northeast at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing at 80 through the inlets and valleys, and the low should be -3 with a wind chill of -9. Terrace and Kitimat should also have a cloudy evening with winds from the northeast at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times. The low will be -12 with a wind chill of -20. The Bulkley Valley should also be mainly cloudy tonight with a low of -22. Moving on to your weekly weather forecast, the north coast should see colder temperatures but with clear conditions overall. There might be some flurries tomorrow, but expect the temperature to hover around 0 degrees for the rest of the week. The high will be 2 degrees on Saturday and the low will be -12 on Monday night. Terrace and Kitimat will have similar patterns, but with an Arctic outflow for the week. It will be cold for sure, but it might be a needed change. After a few months of rainy conditions, the high will be -4 on Tuesday and the low will be -14 on Sunday night. The Bulkley Valley will have some clouds tomorrow with 3 days of sun, then back to some clouds on Tuesday. Expect the high to be -9 on Tuesday while the low to be -21 on Saturday and Sunday night. And now we take a look at your Northwest Roadside Report. For additional updates, and make sure to check out drybc.ca. Highway 16 has slippery sections from Masset to Dodge and Geeds, compact snow between Skeena and Whitsett, and slippery sections from Vanderhoof to Prince George. Highway 37 has compact snow as well as Highway 37A. Highway 118 has slippery sections, and the Nishka Highway and Telegraph Creek Road both have compact snow. And these are what the cameras were looking like from around the Northwest. Still to come, canceled flights from around the country keeps thousands of WestJet travelers stranded. Hello again. Well, during an ongoing flurry of orders, yesterday, President Trump signed a ban on transgender athletes in women's sports, and advocates say this is part of a wider assault on transgender rights. CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin reports from Washington.
What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor?
Young girl athletes wearing team gear and medals got a close look at the latest executive order targeting transgender rights.
You know, this is a big one, right?
This signature bans transgender athletes from women's sports.
If you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
U.S. President Donald Trump called it ending the war on women's sports. Advocates called it the latest of his attacks on transgender rights.
And it goes to a bigger picture of not just impacting sports, but really impacting and thinking about trying to legislate away the trans community.
The NCAA, representing nearly 510,000 college and university athletes, has said previously that it knows of less than 10 transgender athletes within its ranks.
Now you're going to go out and win those events, right?
Trump, though, pointed to examples, including 2 Paris Games Olympians he says were men competing in women's sports. He's pushing the International Olympic Committee to make changes for the Summer Games in Los Angeles in 2028.
America categorically rejects transgender lunacy. We want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics.
The White House has also said it would order Homeland Security to deny visas to transgender Olympic athletes. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Washington.
And for airline news, due to this massive cold front that has affected most parts of North America, many flights from WestJet were delayed and/or canceled, which has put customers in conditions that they would have never hoped for. Here's Jeremy Thompson from CTV News over in Edmonton.
Frustrated, beyond frustrated.
I'm holding it all in. I'll just leave it at that.
Red and orange highlights show a handful of flights delayed or canceled, including Donna Leslie's.
I have 11 altogether, and this is Noah.
She was supposed to be on a flight to visit her grandkids Tuesday night.
It was canceled till 8 o'clock this morning, and so I came here for 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock this morning to check in, and it's canceled again.
At least 15 flights in and out of Edmonton were canceled, along with more than 130 nationwide this week. The vast majority were WestJet flights.
They apologized. I just heard something about weather, and that's about it.
This was the WestJet backlog in Calgary Tuesday morning.
We will not be rebooking. If you're unhappy, what we're doing here today is we are sending out vouchers if you qualify for them.
A spokesperson for the airline says WestJet is working to reaccommodate all disrupted guests as quickly as possible, but due to limited availability on WestJet flights or with alternate carriers, it may not be possible to reaccommodate all affected guests within the 48-hour time frame specified by the air passenger protection regulations.
Just recently, WestJet was fined to the tune of $150,000 by the Canadian Transportation Agency for a previous incident in 2024.
This advocate believes WestJet is violating some air passenger protections now. He says sometimes airlines pay fines rather than going through the complex process of rebooking hundreds of flights.
Unfortunately, because of how low the penalties being issued are, it is still more profitable for airlines to break the law in many cases.
WestJet is adding back flights as planes clear winter maintenance procedures. Some passengers won't be taking them.
I'm flying Air Canada from Winnipeg back home to Toronto when it's done, so hopefully that one goes okay.
Jeremy Thompson, CTV News, Edmonton.
And now we take a look at the stock market, where we have a drop in most categories today. The Canadian dollar is down just over 1/10 of a penny. The price of gold is down $16.30. Oil is down 42 cents, natural gas is up 5 cents, and aluminum is down $23.50. In Toronto, the TSX is down 35 points. The Venture Index is down 2.44. In New York, the Dow Jones is down 125.65, and NASDAQ is up at almost 100. Still ahead, how a man traveling to Afghanistan survived 77 days of being held as a hostage. Welcome back to our final segment. Well, a Canadian veteran who was captured by the Taliban is now telling the story of his release after spending 77 days in custody. Yesterday, he spoke with CTV's Judy Trin.
David Lavery returned to Afghanistan on Remembrance Day. His mission, to bring visas to 18 Afghans with Canadian ties and get them out. But he was arrested at Kabul airport.
Until, not danger, but until I was actually handcuffed, blindfolded, and then put in a cell. That's when a lot of things changed right away. That's when you know your freedom is gone.
Nicknamed Canadian Dave, in 2021, when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, he was on the walls of the airport searching for Canadians to pull them from the chaos.
Canadian citizen,
This time, the Taliban assumed he was a spy. They threatened him with torture and threw him into a basement cell.
And you could see human sweat oil stain where somebody would be, his back and his head would be up against the wall.
After Lavery's arrest, his wife Junping and son Brant immediately reached out to other Canadian veterans and alerted consular officials.
I can, first of all, assure you that the Canadian government is taking very, very seriously this situation.
The family says they were in direct contact with Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. They were counseled not to speak to media and downplayed Lavery's past as a member of Canada's elite JTF-2 Special Forces, worried it would put his safety at risk.
I have to thank, the Canadian government and the Qataris that were working so fast with the government.
Canada, which does not have diplomatic ties with the Taliban, reached out to Qatari officials to negotiate for his release. 77 days later, on January 26, Lavery was put on a flight from Kabul to Doha.
I just ran for him. I just didn't feeling just never leave me alone,
And she hit me like a vice grip, it was bang, wouldn't let go, and it was very emotional.
Since 2010, the Laverys have operated a consulting company in Afghanistan to help foreigners navigate the murky and sometimes dangerous politics of that country. After this arrest, the Laverys are considering closing their office in Kabul.
With this current cold wave, some people down on the island are relishing this opportunity to go diving in the frigid waters. And CTV's Adam Sawatsky has our final story of the day.
That bird just standing on the ice.
Murren Buick is preparing to realize a diving dream after receiving a message from a far from fair weather friend.
When Ethan asked me if I wanted to go ice diving, I was like, yes.
Ethan Pang, who sports carbon fiber flippers, who's decorated his ceiling with prints of some of the creatures he's encountered under the sea, had launched his drone over the ocean when the temperature hit record lows.
Oh, we're just so pumped.
They couldn't believe Brentwood Bay was covered in ice.
I thought I had to go to Iceland to ice dive, but it's pretty special to do that in my backyard.
Well, Murren was surprised by the slush that slid down her snorkel.
Into my mouth, and I would have a brain freeze. It was so cold.
Ethan made a conscious effort to take a bite out of the ice.
Surprisingly not taste as salty as I thought.
Although ice diving proved to be far more fun than they could have imagined.
Probably looked like goofballs.
People shouting to us like, "Are you guys okay? We're fine, thank you."
Well, Ethan and Murren couldn't have been better, flopping about like seals, rolling around like logs. Nothing could beat that moment. They found themselves under the ice.
You dive down and then the noise just goes away. It's all silent under the water.
Well, Murren calls it potentially peaceful, and Ethan says it might have made him feel meditative.
Yeah, but we were not really in that kind of mood.
Well, Ethan and Murren were in the same mood that made some build up snowmen or others slide down hills. The sort of mood that makes these experienced divers want to have the most fun and make the most happy memories during this unprecedented snow day.
Have some fun. Don't be afraid to get wet and cold.
And you only live once, so go for it.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Central Saanich.
That'll be all for our cast tonight. Thank you very much for watching.